Hello, and welcome to the Comic Conspiracy, episode 175 for the week of September 15th, 2014. My name is Ryan Higgins, who is here with me this week.
Bryce Larsen.
Toby.
And Charlie.
What's happening, guys?
Hello.
No Brock this week. Some stuff. He'll be back next week. Should be fine. Bryce, before we started recording, Toby was asking you the always important question. What are your top 16 X-Men characters? Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Top 3 X-Men characters. What were your top 3 X-Men characters?
Top 3?
16 to take the whole podcast.
Well, I would have to explain them all. My top 3 X-Men related characters are Cable, Deadpool, and Gambit in that order. My top X-Men specifically, I'm not sure if Cable counts, even though he's been in books called X-Men, specifically Astonishing X-Men from, I think it was the early 2000s.
How about more traditional main team?
Gambit, I like Gambit, okay. And I always go back and forth on Wolverine because he's so overrated, but he's so awesome. Despite the permeating the entire Marvel universe, I still really like him. Although I liked him way more back when he used to be a badass. But
it's more fun.
I grew up on the X-Force guys, so I like all them, and half of them have become X-Men. So yeah, I mean that this would be a whole separate podcast. I would probably want to prepare because
there should be a side podcast called Bryce's X-Men.
Yeah, there should be.
Do you want to review
Bryce.
Do you want to review every X-Men book every week when it comes out, and we'll do a little side podcast about that? No, I'm not doing that.
No, you're not joking?
No, I'm not. I'm not doing that.
Okay. Because challenge accepted.
So we're like in apparently the no news month here because the last few weeks have been no news. And there's no news this week either. Not really. A couple things to talk about, but we actually got a lot of really good questions this week, so I want to get to some of those too. So we'll keep this relatively short, hopefully. Disney has released the plot synopsis for Avengers: Age of Ultron. I'll read you the little blurb here. Marvel, it's nothing we don't know, but hey, at least it's official. Marvel, if I could say the name of the company, Marvel Studios presents Avengers: Age of Ultron, the epic follow-up to the biggest superhero movie of all time. When Tony Stark tries to jumpstart a dormant peacekeeping program, things go awry, and Earth's mightiest heroes, including Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, the Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, are put to the ultimate test as the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. As the villainous Ultron emerges, it is up to the Avengers to stop him from enacting his terrible plans, and soon uneasy alliances and unexpected action pave the way for an epic and unique global adventure. So there you go. The main team, as well as Sam Jackson, Nick Fury, Maria Hill, James Spader as Ultron, who is this? Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda Maximoff, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, as Pietro Maximoff, also known as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch.
James Spader is awesome.
Yeah.
He's awesome. How about hulked out Quicksilver? Is he from the hulked out heroes?
Yeah,
crossover?
I still don't know quite what's up with that, but I have to assume they're going to be slightly different takes on the characters.
For those of us that don't know what we're talking about, although I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast watched the back matter or the after credit stuff on Winter Soldier. They had a hulked out version of Quicksilver, just looking really buff and angry. So we'll see how that ends up actually translating to the big screen.
Yeah, and
I don't know. I just wonder if they didn't translate what they were trying to translate at the end of Winter Soldier there.
I do really like Quicksilver in terms of favorite X-Men. Going back to that, I really also Magneto. I guess he kind of counts, although he's like such a obvious villain that. Anyway, sorry. So
he's
yeah,
been in more X-Men characters or X-Men books as a hero than as a villain at this point.
Yeah, but he's like the archetypal villain. He's like, sort of defines the X-Men villain. He's like the number one. So even though he's been more, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, that sounds like a great synopsis. James Spader is amazing. I am very excited. There's a couple podcasts ago you guys were saying that or maybe it was you that was saying you don't know if Avengers 2 will be able to achieve the global box office results of number one. Was that an accurate?
Number one's one of the highest grossing movies ever still. So yeah.
I think that it will. I think that it will outgross it.
It's possible.
I mean,
It's very
just
possible.
if you think about like sequels of this type. I would like to see some actual numbers on it, but it seems to me as a layman that sequels of this caliber always outperform the whatever. I mean, didn't Iron Man 2 make more than Iron Man 1?
All of them have made more than the previous.
Yes, but there's the... Don't get me wrong. I am sure it's going to do as well as the first one.
So, other than your butt...
In terms of actually surpassing it, I do feel that when you come out with a movie that's sort of the first of its kind, that sort of sets the standard, sort of the way Avengers did in terms of the bring all these heroes together for one big movie, there's a certain amount of repeat viewing and such people go to just because it's sort of new ground treaded upon. So it's really a question of, do you think you're going to get the third and fourth viewings that a lot of people had on the first Avengers movie with Avengers 2?
No, but am I correct in hearing, did you agree with me that you think it's going to outperform?
I don't necessarily think it's going to outperform. I just think it's going to do as well.
Well, I think it's going to outperform. I think
so too.
At the heart of it, even though I agree with what you're saying about, you're not going to have the sort of the cachet of the big first ever superheroes all coming together movie.
But you got so many more people knowing about superheroes now. I think my mom knows who Captain America is. 5 years ago, she wouldn't have known, right?
Yep, same with my parents. And also, there's just
think of it this way.
economically, there's just more 3D screens out there. That's a fact.
Man, but you got to look at this though. Okay, so Guardians worked 300,000 or 300 million this year, right? It's the only movie to do it so far. It's the highest grossing movie of the year. Avengers. Do you remember what Avengers domestic?
Wait, was that Guardians domestic?
Yeah.
Avengers domestic, I'm going to say 500 million.
623.
Jesus.
Foreign, 895. $1.5 billion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen. To me, I think that was like the fluke.
But, dude, foreign markets love sequels more than the originals.
Oh, man. I mean, I want it to be.
Didn't Cap 2 do better than Cap 1?
Every single...
Thor 2 do better
but
than
Avengers
Thor 1?
blew...
Yes, you are correct. Typically, when you get a franchise, the numbers tend to keep going up and up and up. I completely and totally agree there.
But Avengers
Transformers
blew the doors off everything, though.
Exactly. It's the... Every once in a while, you get a movie that causes so many repeat viewings that it basically inflates those numbers greatly amongst...
Titanic.
Exactly. And if they did a Titanic 2, which I'm not saying they ever would.
It is the...
If they did, I don't think...
That I would watch multiple times.
If you count domestic, it is the third highest grossing movie by $100,000. Avatar, Titanic, Avengers...
100,000, you mean?
Or 100 million, I mean. God, I keep saying 1,000.
Yeah.
Avengers, Titanic... Avatar... Man, let's drive this over. Avatar, number 1. Titanic, Avengers, and then Dark Knight, number 4. I just don't see a movie today or next year, even with the 3D budget, or 3D screens, even with the crazy amount of success of the first one. I mean, that is just on a ridiculous level. I just don't see it happening. I don't know. Maybe it will.
I don't remember. Did Dark Knight Rises do better than Dark Knight?
No,
I didn't think so.
It was close.
And I think, again, to me, a lot of that translates to how many times did people see Dark Knight in theaters versus Dark Knight Rises. I think the same number of people went out to movie theaters, per se. It's just a question of repeat viewing at those upper echelon.
I think that was also probably heavily influenced by the Heath Ledger factor that you may not be considering. Look, I think that my parents, just like Toby said, my parents, my family that are not comic book people, like they didn't know the Avengers.
No.
Now they know the Avengers, so they might see the sequel, whereas they didn't see the first.
With Batman,
Okay.
if Heath Ledger hadn't died, it wouldn't have done as well as it did, and neither would Rises. Because Batman Begins did not do very well comparatively to the sequels.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Terrible thing to happen, but they benefited from it.
Oh, yeah,
not
greatly. Yeah.
Not that it. Well, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about Dark Knight. I was dating a girl at the time whose brother wanted to go watch a movie. I'm like, let's go watch the new Batman. He goes, no, let's go watch The Dark Knight. I was like, okay, let's do that. He didn't know that was a Batman movie. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
He was like, no, let's not watch the superhero movie. I heard The Dark Knight is really good. I'm like, sure, let's watch that one then.
That's awesome.
I can see that happening.
So anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's move on.
I got a shitload of questions to ask people.
Bring it on.
We should talk about it. Let's do some of this stuff here. It's from Parker on Twitter. With the death of Wolverine around us, what are your guys' favorite comic book deaths, even though they don't matter? Flash. Oh, go ahead. Flash in Crisis is still one of my absolute favorites. Perfect.
It's a very good one.
I love
mine
that.
is Superman.
Just Death of Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got me into comics.
Yeah. There was a point where, the death of Superman was always meant to come, that was a stunt. The death of Flash legitimately was like, yeah, we're just going to kill this character off because, we have another one. We can do this. No one really cares, I mean, obviously people do, but it wasn't like the death of Superman or the stuff we have now where it's this calculated event, right?
Death of the Green Goblin was good.
OG, way back in the day?
Yeah, back in the day.
Well, again, this was not made to sell comics. I mean, obviously everything is made to sell comics, but it wasn't a event.
There's a lot of books over time that I kind of feel like, yes, what the significance has sort of changed as comics continued to come out, but at the time that was sort of like a major thing, just like at the time Death of Jason Todd, Death of Bucky, Death of Flash, like the list goes on and on and on and on.
Well, with those deaths, they were parts of the story, and there was never, at least not to my knowledge, a kind of knowingness these characters would come back. You get the death of Superman, which is the first time it happened, where they're like, we're killing this character just to bring him back. I'll give you that one. But every time after, the deaths could be cool, in the superhero stuff. Obviously, we're not going to count, stuff from the indie books or Vertigo or whatever, because those are deaths not worth spoiling either, because there's some major deaths, especially in some Vertigo books, that I'm like, oh, such a great moment, but I don't want to spoil the books if people haven't read it. But when you're talking Marvel and DC, which I'm assuming the question was asked about, because talking about them not mattering, no one's going to look and be like, man, the death of Human Torch from a couple years ago surely was great comic book history, because no one's going to even remember it happened. Where the death of Superman and these characters that did stay dead for decades previous, the death of Bucky was retconned. I mean, that was not something that happened in the comics. That was something they put into the comics later to explain what happened to him.
First death of Jean Grey.
Sure, exactly, same thing. It was a story. Death. It wasn't It wasn't hype. It wasn't an event.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But I do see what you're saying, and I agree with that. That's a good point. I also, for the Phoenix one, it's, I guess, different because by her namesake, it's not as cheap when they bring her back.
Yeah, sure.
In the name, but
sure.
Let's see who else. All the other X-Men deaths have been terrible. Back. I know the joke was that they were going to bring her back like the year after.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, Morrison was like, no, I want her dead. I want to do this. And then he left the book, and then they're like, well, let's keep her dead for the new one, for the current one.
Good for them.
Yeah. Toby again.
I'm still shocked.
Oh, I think it's easy. It's Jason Todd for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was the first time that's the first time I realized I could die. I mean, that's the first time I even experienced that in comic book, and the whole crowbar thing with Joker beating the shit out of Jason Todd. I was like, this is serious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Jason Todd for sure.
Cool.
And I had Superman showing up in the book, too. So it's like the first time I've seen a Superman-Batman crossover, too. So I was like, they're friends.
Well, here's one for you, Toby.
Yes?
This is from Sheen on Twitter. He asks,
hello, Sheen.
What do you guys think of French and Belgian comics?
Yes.
The Franco-Belgian comics were more popular, overseas clearly than here. However, there are a bunch that have made the translation.
I got to be honest, I don't know a lot of the new ones these days anymore. Though.
There really aren't. That's the thing.
Really? It's still I mean, I know Asterix is done by different guys now, right?
It's Asterix and Tintin.
Yeah.
Smurfs. Lucky Luke.
Oh, I love Lucky Luke.
And then you go back to like the classics, Blueberry, Inca, all the humanoid.
Well, there's some
stuff.
other ones. There's the Marsupilami, which is that yellow monkey dude with the giant ass tail. Freaking awesome book. I love that book.
Yeah, I have a list here on
where's Black Side imported from?
Let me look. I'm not sure where that is. But a lot of the stuff that what the heck is the company? Humanoids over here in the U.S. republishes, reprints a lot of these European comics, and that is, the Incal. Is Techno Priest one of those?
I gotta be honest. I mean, I grew up on those books and love those books.
Smurfs is one of your favorites.
Yes.
So,
but I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to Asterix and Lucky Luke, though.
Oh yeah.
I mean, those two are just like the pinnacle. I mean, I could read those over and over and over and over.
Black Side is Spanish. I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't remember.
Yeah, Lucky Luke and Asterix and Tintin were the top three for easy.
With Asterix and Tintin, we actually, at the store, sell a lot of them because there's a lot of... The Bay Area is a very, diverse group. So we have a lot of people from India, a lot of people from Europe that live in this area or visit in this area, and those comics are still, to this day, so popular. So we sell more of those than we do a handful of American stuff. It's very, very popular. And then you can kind of grab whatever. It's not like you don't have to read everything. Yeah. You just kind of can grab any of these adventures. So
some actually do go in order. Yeah, some do go in order, but
yeah, of course, yeah. No, there's been a couple, Tintin especially, there's been a couple thicker collections, but they're like shrunk down. Yeah. I want the full-sized album. Yeah. But
I don't like the collections just because the stories are meant to be those stories. The big ones are like 3 books put together. I don't really like them, and sometimes they're not in the right order, so I don't like them either. So at least with the normal sized ones, where you can put them in the order you want to.
They're so thin.
They're not really that thin. They're like good 50 pages, if not more. Just fake paper.
I just want a nice collection.
There's some, like I said, Marsupilami is like I'm really happy that I was able to get some of the English Asterix and some English Lucky Lukes, but some of the ones I still miss is there's a Yakari, which is about this little native Indian guy. I love that book, and like I said, the Marsupilami, which is the yellow monkey dude, which is giant, huge ass tail that can make little boxing things out of it and swing like cars into it. It's pretty cool stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But what was the initial question? What do we think of it?
Yeah.
That's it?
You're a fan of them. You're a fan of them, so yeah. I mean, my knowledge of Asterix is minimal. Tintin, I've read a couple of them. I love that movie they did a couple years ago.
Oh, the Spielberg and Peter Jackson one?
I thought that was
pretty
so
well done.
Fun.
Yeah.
My interest in Tintin's kind of a little more these days.
There's 7 animated Asterix movies and 4 live-action ones.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
We have them all. I could bring them in. We could do an Asterix watching party.
Nice.
Might be all in German, though. But
we'll figure it out. Got a couple questions here from Stefano. First one. Yes.
One more. The second Asterix movie with Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Monica Bellucci plays her.
Yeah.
Oh, my freaking God. For a kid's movie, Monica Bellucci just walks around. Oh! Anyways, that was it. Continue on.
I've heard.
Continue on.
Stefano's got a question here. Between Blue and Gold, we should say officially Booster Gold and Blue Beetle coming back.
I thought this was going totally the X-Men way, dude. Blue and Gold. I'm like, Blue all the way.
No, Blue and Gold, the boys coming back to Justice League 3000. Something weird happened with this. So Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are going to be Justice League 3000, written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, the writers of Justice League and Justice League International back in the 80s, who wrote these characters to crazy success. They said in an interview just this past week on Newsarama that Booster Gold and Blue Beetle are coming to Justice League 3000. It's not a New 52 version. It's not even a post-Identity Crisis version. This is the version directly out of Justice League International. They wake up having just had a conversation with Ted Kord during one of their wacky adventures, maybe right after their last issue on the book, and these characters are in it. It's Justice League 3000 takes place in the future of a post-crisis world, pre-Identity Crisis, pre-Infinite Crisis. So, what's up with that?
That is awesome. I approve.
But Stefano says between that and Multiversity, which is Grant Morrison's new comic, with all the crazy multiverse shit that's going on, that takes place, again, directly after Final Crisis, which was a pre-New 52 book. He says, do you think we'll see a sort of soft launch of the pre-New 52 in the New 52 universe? I don't think so, but I think they're letting the creators kind of do what they want. I don't think it's maybe a necessarily, how do I say this? A plan yet, at least, but I think they're kind of like, let's play around here. Let's let the guys do what you want. If it's fun, if a book like Justice League 3000, if it gets canceled, no one cares, right? Because it's not a great selling book.
I guess my mentality on this is the second you establish the multiverse in any way, shape, or form, which they definitely have, that always leads to the what pre-crisis, post-crisis.
Right.
versions of universes are still out there.
Yeah, it gets confusing.
So, yes, I'm perfectly fine with people being able to write the books that they envision in their head to whatever success they're going to get doing it that way.
Yeah. Well, I know a bunch of us here are big fans of certain aspects of the New 52 and big fans of Toby's shaking his head.
Except for Wonder Woman.
And some aspects of the New 52.
Fine.
And big fans of some aspects of the pre-New 52.
Yes.
I mean, right now, I would not take the previous version of Swamp Thing. The version of Swamp Thing right now is better than what we've had in years pre-New 52. Justice League is better. Wonder Woman is better. Batman is as good, if not better. I mean, I love the Morrison stuff.
This is where I start getting into, like, this is kind of where they were going before they relaunched everything with Swamp Thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
So
sure.
It's almost like most of what you've said is either stayed constant or is written by Jeff Johns and therefore is great.
There you go. But there are, Aquaman, same deal. I would take
Jeff
the
Johns.
post version. All-Star Western, continuing Jonah Hex. There are really, really good things in the New 52. And I'm Wonder Woman probably being the biggest example of a dramatic change. And I don't think Justice League as well. Justice League has definitely a very big change to their origin and everything. Those kind of being the two more outstanding aspects. I love the origin of the Justice League, but if you go back and read Justice League for like the 5 years pre-New 52, it was terrible. You had Brad Meltzer's relaunch of the title, which was fantastic. 12 issues, solid, just gold the whole time. And then shit for years after that. So would I take this over that? Yeah, absolutely.
This is me just going, except for when it was written by Jeff Johns first.
Exactly.
Or Grant Morrison, man.
Well, that was earlier.
before.
Yeah.
But I mean, okay, so this is coming from somebody not reading a lot of DC. I mean, Batman, the whole Batman family and the whole Green Lantern family haven't really changed that much, did they? I thought that the whole thing was that they didn't.
To me, they did.
Because of Cassie.
Okay.
Well, no, Cassie, Nightwing seems younger. Their age difference is not as big anymore. There's more. The whole Bat family, I think, is shaken up. Barbara, I like her in a wheelchair. I'm sorry, Barbara.
But I thought, so I thought that the idea was that Johns and Morrison are untouchable. Therefore, the Green Lantern family and the Bat family are going to sort of stay the same.
Batman stayed the same, I think. It's his
the
family
way it really works is everything gets what I would call a little wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey in the way of the general spirit of the books didn't change, but they weren't necessarily acknowledging how this all fit within the timeline because everybody was supposed to be younger now.
You basically have 4 Robins within 5 Robins within a 10-year period.
Which I really dislike because I love the history behind it. I love Nightwing going away and doing the Titan swing. I love the younger one doing the...
But there's a great comic, I don't remember who did it. It may have been Sergio Aragonis. I can't remember who did the comic.
Where he drew, and then the other dude drew what's the guy?
No.
It looks cool, though. Have you heard about this?
The Gru Conan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been out, yeah.
I think it's awesome.
No.
I think it's really cool.
No, there's a family portrait of Batman, right? Mm-hmm. And it's Batman and Dick Grayson. And Batman looks like Batman, and Dick Grayson is a kid, right? Just Kid Robin. And then it's the same picture of Batman, except now he's Nightwing, right? And then the same picture of Batman and Nightwing's in his new costume, except now we have Tim Drake.
Yeah.
And then it's Tim Drake, and he's
Well, do you know who Batman is then in this case?
But Batman is the same.
No, do you know who it's Bart Simpson, it's Batman.
Yeah, sure. Right, Batman has never changed. He's the exact same age. All the characters around him are growing up, and new ones are coming in. And so, I understand the need to kind of feel the need to explain some of that stuff away.
Yeah.
And they really did take a lot of characters, Green Lantern included, that a lot of the pre-New 52 stuff, it's not that it didn't happen, they just never talk about it, and they just ignore it. Things like Killing Joke is like a rare example of something they acknowledge in the New 52.
Well, that's the thing that... Yes, from a continuity perspective, I love to sit there and nitpick on, well, if this did happen, then how are we still where we're at? Sort of like they acknowledge Blackest Night within it, but they don't really necessarily acknowledge everything with Brightest Day. And
or what was going on with other characters in Blackest Night.
So there's this sort of weird juggling they do to kind of acknowledge what happened, but not acknowledge the stuff that doesn't make sense anymore based on that happened. Right. Sort of like they acknowledge Batman got his back broke at some point. They acknowledge...
But Bane is doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
Bane feels very different.
So it's like they mess around with, yes, some key events happen, but we're not going to tell you exactly when or how they all worked now in relation to all these changes.
Yeah. Stefano also asks real quick. He says he started buying comics around the time of Flashpoint, so he hasn't been reading for very long. But one of the things that was out around the time he was starting to read was Fear Itself. And he says, what's up with Fear Itself? I heard bad things, but I never knew why.
Listen, Stefano. Fear Itself was actually a very solid story that was undone by the post-Fear Itself 3-part comics. I think that most of
I'll argue with part of that, but it definitely shit itself at the end for no reason. For no fucking reason.
Wait, what do you mean?
The main book was not
point
that
1, point 2, point 3?
Right, the main book was not that good. However,
it was a good story.
It did what it did.
STFU, it was a very solid story.
Hold on. It did what it did.
It was a solid story.
Okay, it did what it did.
Yeah.
6.5 out of 10. It did what it did. But then at the end, it completely shits itself because it literally undoes the entire story in an aftermath
point 1, point 2, point 3?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to talk about those because that was very aggravating. Look,
but that's the problem with Fear Itself. It goes from, okay, I'll give you a 6, and then it goes to a 0 because of those issues.
It was like a 7.5.
Okay.
But it goes to a 0 with those issues, right? It completely undoes the story.
I do agree that those... Look, Stefano, if you want to read Fear Itself, read 1 through 7. Was it 6 or 7? Read the story. Don't read the last issue, point 1, point 2, point 3, because...
But then nothing after that will make sense, because you're like, I thought these characters died.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
To me, the problem is, and I'm just going to sum this up in a nutshell, and Bryce is going to hate me for a moment.
Spoilers for Fear Itself.
But... they have certain events within the book that they wanted to be shocking. They wanted to resonate with people. They wanted people to go, holy crap, this just happened. But they weren't willing to actually have it happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So they had to pull all that back.
Yeah.
Right. They retconned it all with a follow-up series.
It's basically, like, to me, and this is something that they do in comics from time to time. DC's been guilty of it, and Marvel's been guilty of it. They need that big hook, that big thing to get people talking about the event, but they can't actually kill Thor for a long time. They can't actually, like, there's certain events where you kind of go, well, if we kill this character, we can not be making money off this character for a little while, so we can't actually kill him, but if we do kill him for an issue, we'll sell more.
Okay, you guys are not wrong. It was completely undone by those point issues, but look, Stefano, at the end of the day, you read the 6 or 7 issues of the story, and it's a very cool story. I mean, like these other hammers, and then these villains
are
all
what if or something.
Think of it like a what if. And when you read the point 1, point 2, point 3 issues where it does undo everything that happened, you got to think about it like, man, that would have been like kind of cool. Like, man, like it didn't have it. So what? So skip ahead a couple minutes if you don't want to hear the spoiler. If you haven't read it yet,
I'm just having the fun of going, and that's going to be the next what if issue. It's going to be what if Fear Itself had never been undone.
That would be a great what if issue. Look, so what happens in the end is
but before you spoil anything, just suggest some good Marvel books. Like better event books than Fear Itself.
After I'm done schooling you guys on Fear Itself, can we talk about Original Sin and number 8 and how awesome it was?
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, let's do it in a second. Look, the Grey Gargoyle, as one of the examples, the Grey Gargoyle turns all of Paris all of France. At least Paris. Turns them all to stone. And when it happens...
kills millions of people.
And you're like, oh my god, that's pretty aggressive, Mr. Gargoyle.
And Iron Man he didn't let it happen, but he
failed to stop it.
But he didn't stop it. Right. So you're like, oh my, like, geez, that's pretty aggressive. Anyway, and then in a single issue, in the point 1, point 2, point 3 stuff, they're like, yeah, nope, bloop, it's all, everybody's back to normal, and look, none of them remember being turned into stone. And it's kind of like, okay. Well, so that whole thing that got me really stressed out actually just didn't happen? No, Okay. Look, so
But then they do it 2 more times.
and then they do it to 2 other. I forget what the other 2 examples are. That was just
Bucky and Thor, right?
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. Thor has this heroic sacrifice, and then they're like, "Nope, not dead."
it's like what? The whole point of this was that he dies at the end, and they're just like, "Nah, he's not dead."
Look,
for some reason,
you get it's at least a 7.5 during the main story. You're like, "Wow, that was a pretty good read," and then you have to read the point 1, point 2, point 3 because that's like what actually sort of resonates throughout the rest of the Marvel universe. So. I don't want to belabor this question
longer. I love how you say
longer.
the stuff that actually resonates when it's more along the lines of, so if you just take all that out, you miss nothing.
It's so tough because it was a good story other than that, but you had to have that to make like Earth survive. So I don't know. Read it and enjoy it, and then you get to the point 1, point 2, point 3 stuff, and you're like, okay, it was not too good to be true, but it's like, it couldn't have stayed that way. Anyway, next question. It's a good read. Go read it. It's enjoyable.
Go read Secret Invasion or Civil War or
those were both
Original
better.
Sin. Or
Original Sin was great.
Yes.
Now there's a book. It's an event book that didn't have a build-up. It's just like, here's a story. The crossovers are all useless. But the main Original Sin book was pretty good. I liked it. And it didn't have to happen, but it's a pretty significant shakeup for at least 3 major characters.
Yeah.
Dude, here's what's going on right now in the Marvel. Let me drop some knowledge on you guys. So, Brian Michael Bendis gets a lot of hate. He's a very polarizing writer. I think that's due to his success because you either love him or you hate him. And so his event books were always going to be, praised or vilified because he was the author. So, like, you suggested Civil War and Secret Invasion as being great reads. I agree with you. I bet that Higgins would disagree. I know that he just does.
I recommend Civil. Despite not liking Civil War, I usually recommend it to people over Secret Invasion.
Okay, well, point being, you don't like Brian Michael Bendis.
That was Mark Miller, too.
Yeah.
Wait,
Now
really?
you're getting all confused.
Okay, it doesn't change the fact that Brian Michael Bendis is a much more polarizing writer than Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron is much less fanfare. He's more under the radar, a la Peter David, in terms of very solid writing. He has a good. He's pretty prolific, and he does good event books without the fanfare. And I think that the fanfare is what gets the haters all on the internet talking a lot of crap. But his track record.
Why'd you point at me when you said that?
I'm pointing around. I'm. Is it gesticulating?
I'm joking.
Gesticulating is, I think, the word. His Thor has been great. His Wolverine and the X-Men was great. And it wasn't with a lot of fanfare that he sort of took on this Original Sin. It was sort of it wasn't like a major Marvel event, even though it was.
Well, that was actually the thing that got me when it first started.
Yeah,
I was half bashing the book because there were certain aspects of it where I'm like, how is this coming together as an event? And like there were like, I think it was the end of the 3rd issue or something, like that obviously didn't actually happen. This is not actually the direction they're going with it. And it like was one of those big cliffhanger scenes where I'm like, how is that even a cliffhanger? And then like the next 5 issues in a row or something, like mind blown, love the book. It's best thing ever.
Yeah. So 51% of my appreciation for the book, although I may have to recalculate that later, was in how sort of subtle it was, as it had major repercussions. It was a legitimately original, good story, and I agree the tie-ins were garbage, but it had long-lasting-ish consequences at the end. The ending was not, you didn't see it coming a mile away. It was really good, and man, so much hangs on those last issues. Like, anyway, I'm talked enough.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I loved it.
Yes.
Nick Fury gets some pretty dramatic changes in this book, and I think
they all fit the character perfectly.
Well, totally.
I think for a while they've been looking for a way to like really write out Nick Fury to have the more movie friendly version around, and Secret Avengers, I don't know. Do you still read Secret Avengers?
Dude, was it issue 1 where it was like, oh yeah, he's my dad or something like that.
They keep like making fun of Nick Fury. Like, this isn't Nick Fury. They keep making fun of that, but like I feel like the rest of the Marvel universe is trying to be a little more like, in line and be like, yeah, Nick Fury, not that's another guy. So now they're really like, yeah, he's gone.
But it almost makes more sense with the whole fact that he has an army of like the most realistic LMDs ever, because it's like, oh, well, then it doesn't matter who they have as Nick Fury because it's quote unquote Nick Fury. So is it him or is it an LMD? It almost doesn't matter. I mean, that's incredible the way that they did that, because now they sort of have carte blanche with how they deal with the character.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I think my favorite thing about it is it challenged a lot of general assumptions and stuff that they had set up in the past, and kind of just went, nope, we're not gonna use that out anymore. We're gonna shake things up. And I agree, most of the tie-ins were horrible, but every once in a while there would be something where I'm like, holy crap, that was actually pretty dark.
Well, I like the whole Thor and Loki thing. I mean, I know that was announced like way ahead of time, but I mean, also being Jason Aaron, so maybe I'm just on his jock. But like, that's a great story. That's a great way to write in Angela and add all this potential lore. Like, holy crap, there's a 10th realm. Like, the story implications behind the addition of a 10th realm are huge. So there could be so much good stuff there. So. And it didn't feel cheap. I thought that it felt really legit for a character that they bought. So good for them.
The original Sins book, for the most part, was very, very miss for me. But there was a really good story in there with Dum Dum Dugan.
Oh yeah, fuck that story too. I guess it makes sense, but
I didn't read it.
Dum Dum's been an LMD.
What?
Forever. Yeah. Yep. He died like in World War II.
Oh. To make sense that he was in the Cap movie?
Well, just because none of the Howling Commandos
basically
are still
they make
alive.
it sound like the quote-unquote aging serum was not perfected.
Right.
So, yes, Nick Fury, while did extend his life with it, did not necessarily stay young for the long term.
All right. Did he die in World War II, or did he just die at some point? I don't.
He
remember.
died at some point.
Okay, yeah,
I don't think it was in World War II, but so Nick basically brought him back with one of his LMDs, and Dum Dum was not happy about that.
Yeah.
So that is a bummer, and that is kind of annoying. I guess I need more time to think about it since I didn't know about it before this. But in a way, it's kind of refreshing, because it's like, look, they actually aren't supposed to. We aren't supposed to be turning a blind eye that they're this old. They're this old because, or they've lasted this long because they're LMDs. Like, that's nice. And like
with my mind was flat out blown when I saw the older Nick Fury in the book. I'm like,
me too.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and in the same moment, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Like, of course he's like ancient. It was 80 years ago almost.
And of course he'd be operating with LMD younger versions of himself that he has control over. It makes perfect sense for Nick Fury to do that.
And Bucky, spoilers for Original Sin number 8, Bucky taking over the mantle is so appropriate. It's so perfect. And despite, Bleeding Cool snarking on the whole Thor thing, at the end they see Thor can't pick up his hammer. That's cool too. I mean,
They fucking ditched him on that planet. It's super funny. Or on the moon, it was super funny.
Yeah. But that also makes sense. Like, do we forget somebody? It's like they forgot Thor, but they never have to worry about Thor because he can just fly away. But now he can't. But how would they know that?
Right.
So no, that was good too. It was really good.
Okay.
I want to talk about Bendis' X-Men stuff if we get a chance.
Well, I got a question here. Actually, you can answer.
Okay.
This is from Derek. He says, "Best comic with Storm in it, preferably a separate storyline, so I can jump right in."
Derek, it's not Storm. I'm sorry to tell you. I really want to like Storm, but it's not. That's a great pack, right?
This new series, no good, huh?
Well, I mean, it's only 1 or 2 issues in, so who knows? Look, you want the best stuff with Storm? It's the Brian Wood. Is it still Wood on it? Mm-hmm. It's the X-Women.
Oh, I guess he hasn't done like the last arc, but I think it's still Brian Wood normally. Yeah.
I mean, that's been a great one for me. At first, I was like, well, it doesn't matter what I thought, but I was not sure that it would be as good as it has ended up being. And Storm is largely responsible for sort of sort of owning the team and owning the direction of the team, and making this female 100% female led X-Men or female written about X-Men cast have great adventures and great stories. I personally don't think that it has to be 100% female, but that's a different conversation. But it's a really, really good book. That's your best, Derek. That's your best Storm book. Go pick up Brian Wood's X-Men. I think it's the only one entitled just X-Men.
Yeah, it's just
right
X-Men.
now.
Yeah. I got one last quick question here. Actually, got a couple things I want to talk about post these questions, but we'll get to that real quick. This is from Anton. He says, is Death of Wolverine selling better than Death of Superman? And we're going to have a little bit of a little comics 101 here at the end here, because I actually got a bunch of questions kind of in like a very like, hey, what's the deal with this thing? I felt we should explain. I think it's actually cool to talk about. This is actually kind of a perfect segue to that. Well, you could talk about your X-Men thing too. But Death of Superman should, again, something people should know, is one of the best-selling comic books in like modern comic history. X-Men #1, the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont X-Men #1 from the 90s, still takes the cake at 8 million copies, I believe. I think
that I own 1 million of those copies.
Yeah, Spawn #1 I know was really high. That broke 1 million copies sold. I don't remember what the final number on Death of Superman was, but it was a ton.
Especially when you factor in how many printings it went through.
Yeah. So, nothing will ever come close to those numbers again. I don't know what could make a comic sell that number. It's just not going to happen. Nothing. 100,000 copies now is a success and the best-selling book of the month. Nothing will break. I mean, the closest thing that hit 500,000 was the Obama Spider-Man cover one.
Really?
Between the printings, that got close to 500,000 copies sold. And even that is just outrageous. Like, it's not going to... Again, something like that won't happen more than likely anytime soon. That's like a once-in-a-decade type of thing. So Death of Superman, one of the best-selling and not going down anytime soon. So there you go.
That's awesome. So
talk about your X-Men thing for a minute here, but then I got a handful of things I want to mention.
Okay, well, no, I will try to keep it Bryce quick.
Well, here's a question for you. This last all-new X-Men arc, is that what you want to talk about? Has the last arc been confusing as hell to you? I don't get these future people. Like, I feel like I missed something.
Well, I mean, he's trying to introduce Rays and the Battle of the Atom characters, to add more IP to the X-Men family.
Are they all from Battle of the Atom? Like, I don't remember these guys at all showing up before.
Which ones are you talking about?
Like Rays, and
Rays,
Professor X,
yeah.
and like the Professor X kid, and they were
Battle
in Battle of the Atom.
Did you even read it? It was a great story.
I did. I have no recollection of these characters.
They were the
You
only
evidently
villains.
don't remember the story at all.
They were the only villains in the story, dude.
Were they really?
Dude, you're killing me. All right, look,
I don't remember. I apparently don't remember Battle of the Atom.
okay. You're killing me. Look, all I want to say is more at a high level that if anybody listening is sort of peripherally interested in the X-Men and has been like, I haven't been a fan of X-Men recently, I would highly suggest that you pick up starting at Battle of the Atom and everything since, because Bendis is in the middle of a great... he's building this X-Men saga that we're kind of in the middle of right now, and we will look back on it and be like, wow, that was a great run that Bendis had. He's in the middle of a great run, and he's got the prolification is, I'm not sure if it's the right word that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
but
I just flipped through the Battle of the Atom trade. I don't remember any of this. I wonder if I actually read all these. I very well could have missed like 2/3 of the story. So.
Well, that wouldn't surprise anybody. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say is that, if you're remotely interested in X-Men, I just want to give everybody a heads up. Bendis is in the middle of a pretty good run. I think it's an incredible run on X-Men. I mean, his all-new X-Men and his Uncanny X-Men are going back and forth the way that, the Claremont books used to, in terms of he was incredibly prolific with how much content he was putting out, and so he was able to segue back and forth between them. It's infinitely less confusing than Hickman, even though they're putting out the same amount of material between the two of them. Hickman for Avengers, obviously, and Bendis for X-Men. So I would say that if you're peripherally or remotely interested in X-Men, this is a get Battle of the Atom and everything going forward.
Sure.
It's not hard to jump in, at the end of this run, we'll be like, yeah, that was a great run of X-Men that Bendis did. That's all I want to say.
Okay, there you go. So I got a bunch of questions here. Well, not a bunch, a couple. kind of feel like good things to talk about, because we talk about a lot of random subjects and topics on this podcast that maybe not everyone's familiar with. So I got a question here from Cross Hunter on
Cross X Hunter.
Cross X Hunter, sorry. Who's on the forums and everything all the time. He says he's never been in a comic shop before.
What?
Yeah.
How? What?
He's probably just mail order or buys them online or whatever, or reads them online. He goes, but
Actually, I have to say, I mean, growing up in Europe, when I came to the States, when someone took me to a comic book shop, that concept didn't go through my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? A comic book store? They were like a store that's full of comics. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That exists. Like, that's not possible. It took me to my first comic book shop in LA, and I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So he's got a few things he wants to ask about here, and I got like one or two more questions kind of on the same line, so we'll answer these. He wants to know what a couple of these things mean, which we talk about all the time. What's a back issue? A back issue, to me, is anything previous from the current issue. So whatever the newest issue is, anything before that. Now, like, we have ones that are in bins that are like the real old stuff, usually a year older or more.
To me, current is all of this stuff on the wall here, besides the current of the week. The last 3, 4, 5 months to me is still current because he didn't put them in a board and bag yet. To me, back issues when he put in a board in a bag and throw it into the bins.
Yeah, so us, like most comics, not most, a lot of comic shops have kind of a 3-tier level of comics. We have new this week, brand new, this is the current week stuff. Every week we get new material. Then you have the current issues, which sometimes goes back a few months, sometimes goes back as far as a year. It just depends on how many issues I can stack on the shelf. So these are, you go back, the most recent ones in front, previous issues are behind it. So, if you want, I want, Wolverine 2019-18, you just find them on, they're all in the rack. Now, if you go back further, those are like the real back issues. So those are the ones that are in the bags and boards, taped, usually with a price tag of some form on. Doesn't mean they're expensive, just these are the older issues. It goes back to Action Comics #1 and before. Those are all back issues. So,
Mr. X Hunter, that is the best answer that you're going to get, is what Ryan Higgins just said, is the 3 tiers. There's the 4th tier, and these are all gray areas.
Like the Silver and Golden Age?
Yeah, a lot of comic shops will have wall books where they take those amazing copies of New Mutants 98 where
he did
great
ask,
first appearances occur.
Because I posted this a few times over the weekend. What is a key? Because I posted...
I don't even know what that is. Is that a wall
key
book's
issue?
A key?
I posted a bunch of key issues. We got a bunch of new stuff in, so I took pictures of those key. No, look at all these new keys, right?
Oh.
And a key is exactly what we're talking about. A key issue, an important issue.
Look, Mr. X Hunter, nobody calls them keys.
People do. Oh yeah. Key issues are
okay. I'm just trolling.
They're for issue #1s, first appearance of characters, major important events.
Okay, I didn't know that, and you
like
will never
the issue
need
where
to.
Daredevil gets his hearing back.
You will never need to say. You will never ever need to say, "What do you have for your keys?" You will walk into a store and you will look at the wall, and they're all there. So you don't need to ever say the word key.
Wall books, key issues, they're basically the same thing. He asks about quarter bins. Quarter bins
are amazing.
And they can range in price from 10 cents to $1 or sometimes more.
Quarter bins should be a quarter. Ryan jacks them up to $1 because he lives in Silicon Valley.
No, quarter bins back in the day used to be the books were 50 cents. Here's our discount stuff that were a quarter, right? I mean, this is when quarter bins started, the dawn of comic shops.
No, quarter bins have been around forever.
Obviously, but they really started at the dawn of the comic shop. That is when the late 70s, early 80s is when the quarter bin, because this is the junk we want to get rid of. As time progressed, and a quarter means less, 50 cents or $1 has become more traditional, especially when you're talking about a comic that's 50 cents and you sell it for a quarter, that's fine. When a comic's $5 and you sell it for a quarter, clearly a bit of a different markup there. So
you actually sell them for a quarter as opposed to them being $1 and nobody buys them.
We sell a shitload of dollar books.
Really?
So we have a dollar bin.
Yeah, we do.
We have a dollar bin, and on our sales, we have our dollar bin plus 100 other boxes for 50 cents each.
Well, no, your sales don't count because you have amazing sales.
And we occasionally...
That's different.
And when I need to get rid of more quantity than I'd like 25 cents, we've had 10 cent sales, and I'll probably have another one pretty soon because we have too much crap. At 10 cents, people just load up because they don't care. I'll take anything for a dime. But quarter books is like a catch-all phrase for cheap discounted comics.
You really sell a lot of dollar books?
Oh yeah. Yep. We sell a lot.
Man, good for you.
Had another question here about how long it takes comics. This is from David. He says, how can a new series, only 5 issues in, get delayed for several months? He's actually talking about American Vampire, the current volume.
Look,
how far in advance are comics produced is the question.
The answer is that it ranges, and that writers write anywhere between 3 to 6 months ahead of time. And then they go ahead and they give the art to their inker if they're not doing the inks themselves. And then it subsequently goes to the colorist. And nowadays it's almost all digital. And they need to get it several months ahead of time because the art takes however long it takes. And then it needs to go through the editing process. So it needs to go to the first editor and before it goes to the editor-in-chief. I don't know if the person answering this question works in a 9-to-5 or a different type of job, but look, if you work in a 9-to-5, if you're answering emails from customers, even though it's a separate industry, obviously, like things get delayed a day or two so easily. So imagine it's the same in the comic industry where you need that page colored before the editor can take a look at it, and they delay it. It's so easy to delay it by 24, 48 hours, and then all of a sudden the book's delayed. But what largely happens is the writer or the artist, the penciler, gets so wrapped up in what they're doing that if they have other stuff on their plate, or if they're working on other projects or whatever it is, that they delay getting the pages to the artist, or the artist delays getting the pages to the editor for review. So, not to cop out of the question, but it is a several month process, and when books are delayed, it's because Marvel goes to John Cassidy and says, "Will you draw this book?" And he says, "Absolutely, I've already got the first 2 issues done." And they say, "Oh my God, that's incredible!
Now where's the rest?
We'll give you the whole 8 issue, or we'll tell." We'll tell comic shops that you're doing the whole 8 issues, and they're like, "Okay, that's okay," and then they don't do any more, and then whatever.
Well, so with comics going kind of backwards, when we get the books, we get it 3 weeks after FOC, or Final Order Cutoff. You've probably heard us mention that before. That is when comic stores have their last chance to order a book. It's Monday nights, actually very shortly before we record the podcast. Tuesday morning, those numbers go to the printer. So the comics are printed and shipped. We will receive those books in 3 Wednesdays from then. So you have to go backwards in time from there. The book has to be completed 100% ready to go to the printer that Monday night, right? So that Monday day is probably running around like chickens with their head cut off trying to fix any last mistake. So you have a writer, your Johns and your Brian Michael Bendis's and guys like that can write 4 books a month. They write 1 a week. Artists generally draw 1 a month, 1 every 5 weeks. So you kind of have rotating creative teams, especially on the art side. So you got to figure the bare minimum is going to be 1 week on the writer's side. He has to complete his script. The artist is working at it probably somewhat concurrently, bits and pieces, but usually probably once the script is 100% completed, because the art takes way longer to redo than writing. So you're 5 weeks to produce a comic. So they're working months ahead of time. At least 6 to 8 weeks ahead of FOC, which puts it at 2 months prior, at a bare minimum, 2 to 2.5 months prior to publication. So, yeah.
Great examples of this. I only know Marvel examples, although I'm sure DC has similar examples. Is if you look at Amazing Spider-Man, Dan Slott has, they're pushing those books out every 3 weeks. There's a new Amazing Spider-Man, or when it was Superior Spider-Man, and it's I forget the other 2 artists, but the story it rotates artists by story arc. So it'll be Humberto Ramos does an arc, and then it's like the other gentleman, and then a third gentleman, and then by the time the 4th arc comes around, it's back to Ramos, because Slott is crushing these scripts, and he gives them to the artists, but he gives them to them in rotating order so that they have time. Because like Ryan said, if an arc is let's say 4 or 5 issues, that's 4 or 5 months theoretically. but it's going to take the artist actually 6 months to do all that art. So they need to be doing it ahead of time. Also, Thor, Jason Aaron's Thor, between Asad Ribic and the other gentleman that's not as good, but he does a good job.
Ribic's got to take 6 weeks for each issue.
Well,
There's no way he's pumping those out one a month.
Right, no, totally. So I'm saying that it's it goes in between Ribic and then the other gentleman who is very solid, but just I don't know because he's not Asad Ribic. But he does a good job. But it goes back and forth, even though Jason Aaron is doing. He's probably at the cadence of about one book a week too in terms of writing.
I would also say that typically speaking, when you're dealing with like your monthly Batman book or whatnot, you're not going to see these kind of problems. Most of the time, it's either something that's only being done by a particular creative team. So if other projects come up, that they can potentially make more money off of, I would assume they're more apt to push back the books that they're not going to make as much money off of. Right. And the other factor of that is there are some people like Neil Gaiman on Sandman where whenever he's ready turn it in, they will print the book because he just has that freedom.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up here, I have one quick thing I want to talk about here. I'm going to kind of bury this at the end of the podcast. I'm pretty sure I can talk about it because it's been the writer has mentioned it publicly on his Twitter account, so I'm going to assume I can. I wasn't told I can't, but I figure I'd bury it here in the end just in case.
Drum roll.
I got a call the other day from DC Comics and Scott Snyder, writer of Batman, Batman Eternal, the aforementioned American Vampire, and my rep at DC, and Scott Snyder called me the other day.
What?
Not just me. I mean, other stores as well.
No, just Ryan.
Yeah, just me.
It's better. The story's better that way. Keep going.
So, I called the other day. I knew they were gonna. I knew DC was calling me, but I didn't know what it was for. Right?
Exciting.
Well, the rep was
still exciting. It's still exciting. Keep going.
The rep was like, "Where are you going to be there on Thursday?" No, I'm off. Well, can I get your cell phone number? We have to call you on Thursday. And I'm like, "All right, call me on Thursday." Obviously, something's going on. Right? So, I get this call on Thursday as I'm coming out of my doctor's appointment. Post-surgery garbage. So,
can I say my theory? What the call was about first?
Well, we were thinking about
this. No, just go.
All right. Fury's after.
So he said, hey, we just want to let you guys know because order is due FOC, as I mentioned earlier, on Mondays for Batman number 35, the first part of Endgame, their post, whatever their current story arc is coming out. Mm-hmm. The solicitation and the cover art are all fake for those issues. Mm-hmm. They're not actually telling us what's really going on in the issue. It is called Endgame, but Scott Snyder posted on his Twitter account that it's sort of like the veil will be lifted on those covers. The covers will make more sense. The ones we've seen are only like a portion of the cover. Like there's more going on. Like there's all this other stuff. And the solicitation text was very vague and not really telling you what's going on because DC is having Endgame be the Batman 75th anniversary story arc, going to feature. I don't know any like real spoilers. The day the issue comes out, the final page will be the big spoiler. And at that point, they will go out and give this huge... That same day, they're going to have a big reveal of what the story's all about, all the covers, kind of the scope of what's going on with this. But when I asked him about Hush, he said not exactly the same type of story, but similar, kind of maybe in tone. It's a mystery. It has all or most of Batman's classic villains in it.
This sounds incredible.
And it has a return of something major. So, I don't know what.
Wait, hold on.
Something or someone major.
Incredibly horrible cryptic story. So they called you and you just started chatting with Scott Snyder about like, well, do I get to guess, Mr. Snyder?
No. It was to make me buy more comics. But their pitch was...
So he's on the phone. Scott Snyder's on the phone.
Yeah, trying to pitch Ryan to buy him more comics.
And my rep at DC... Okay.
How many comic shops are in the country? How many phone calls did Scott Snyder need to make?
An entire day.
About 1,700. Not that many. He didn't make 1,700 phone calls. So, I mean, it could just be the people that have the reps at DC.
So he calls you and he says... You should buy more. I'm on the phone to convince you to buy more. I'm not going to tell you what's on it, but you can give me shots in the dark.
Well,
is it Hush? Ryan says. Scott says.
Well, I said, is it like Hush? Is it like the story? Similar type of like classic Batman, all the villains.
General spoiler: Hush is already back, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the return of Hush.
Well,
we all know what's happening because he knows what I like. So it's going to be a return of Blue Nightwing. It's going to be a return of Barbara in the wheelchair. Cassie and Steph back. Oh, actually, that new Batgirl book 5 years later is actually pretty good.
Dude, how annoyed are you with that horrible Grayson cover? Like, so many of the covers look awesome, but that's a terrible Grayson cover. Are you angry about that?
Whatever.
Okay, anyway, look, that's an awesome story.
Okay.
That's a really cool story.
I've never had a creator from Marvel or DC call with the company to be like, hey, we can't give you the spoiler, but you're gonna want more of these.
So
never.
I'm just going to.
So awesome.
So I will go out on a limb because they're doing this. To have Scott Snyder actually call comic book stores to be like, hey, we can't tell you, but once the full arc, once people know what's happening, people are gonna want these issues. This is a big deal. We just
awesome.
don't want to spoil it.
So next time DC tells you that they're going to call you, you're going to go, okay, and then all of us are going to be ready to be on that call.
Yes, I will be working Thursday.
So, I mean, if this is, I guess Joker's back, to me that would be like, well, he's already been around, Like, I don't know where this is going, but I will bite that they're going to...
That's crazy, dude.
For this.
So,
that's awesome.
I will...
So the last time I heard of a creator really, really pushing, basically telling people you need to buy more copies of this book was the whole Spider-Man 700 and 698. Like, Dan Slott was going crazy on Twitter and everything, pretty much saying... Make sure you order more of these books. I can't tell you what's going to happen, but make sure you order more of these books.
And the people doing it on their account, on their own account, is one thing. To actually, I mean, if we get a generic email from DC, be like, "Oh, the real thing will be revealed," I probably would be like, "Oh, okay." But to actually have the guy come on and call me, to me, it's like, "All right, look, I will take a plunge." Batman is by far our best-selling comic book. I tripled my numbers because worst case, I have a fucking load of these Batman comics, and one day I'll do something with them. Best case, I'm selling these guys, up and down eBay for the rest of my life because no one else ordered a lot of them. So who knows, right? I don't know,
dude.
I don't know. I'm
or
just
we sell
waiting
out
to find
day
out
one.
there's some sort of weird variant incentive that if you order more of the last issue than you did the first issue, you're going to be like,
You left out the part that he goes like, "This is Ryan, the one I talked to on Twitter."
He did. He recognized my name once he said it out loud. He's like, "Oh wait, I talked to you on Twitter," and I was like, "Yes."
Dude,
how's it going?
Worst case scenario, you sell as many Batman books as you always do.
Yeah,
and you have to talk with Scott Snyder on the phone.
Sure.
That's really cool.
So yeah.
Oh no, actually, if he doesn't sell any, he could blame someone. He goes, "Scott."
Well, yeah. Clearly, they wouldn't do this if it wasn't. They wouldn't do this if it wasn't important. So again, if I'm suddenly getting calls from writers every other week, okay, I can't jump through hoops every time they tell me to jump. But I'll bite. I'll bite the first time.
Liefeld is going to call you next week telling you about his new next fake Avengers book that he's putting out.
His app is, I heard, was number one on the iTunes store the other day.
Oh, my God.
No, I'm joking. So, Batman 35, go order from your comic shop because FOC's passed. I have a feeling DC's going to sell out of them. Or send me an email. I'll gladly ship you a copy.
There you go.
I'll have a lot of them. All right,
We're going to have a midnight party?
That's cool.
We should. We haven't done one of those in a while.
If they allow it, I gladly will. Bryce has to go, so we're going to wrap up.
Sayonara, Mr. Larsen.
Thank you, everyone.
Did you hear my awesome outro last week?
I did not.
Have you finished the episode? The ending's pretty great.
Wait, I thought I did. Maybe I didn't.
Well,
you may have turned it off because you know what the outro normally is.
Well, I'll do the
Toby
outro.
Toby took it over.
Yes.
Toby tried. It was glorious. Well, this episode and all our previous episodes are at geekbox.net or comicsconspiracy.biz. Go to forums at geekbox.net or the Geekbox Facebook group, and you can talk to us and all our great fans and listeners. Digital.comicsconspiracy.biz. Go there and buy comics, digital comics from us. The Geekbox has a Patreon, which I am on. We do okay at patreon.com/geekbox.
Why would you pimp Geekbox Patreon? You need Comics Conspiracy.
I'll get to that. Hold on.
We should have a Patreon.
Where you can donate to the Geekbox. So we all get a little cash money for this thing we do. The Comedy Button just started their Patreon the other week, and they have blown past their first goal, on their way to their second goal. They're closing in on $6,000 a month on Patreon. So they're making some. They get some serious dough coming in there. They got a huge fan base.
If we ever do one, we get like $2 a month.
Yeah. But I told Toby and I told other people, we have a merch store. It's called Comics Conspiracy. We have Patreon. It's called digital.comicsconspiracy.biz. Go buy some comic books from us.
I think only one of the four at the table is...
Well, you get employed, and Charlie gets employed, and you get free crap, and...
Yeah, wait a minute. That means we have to work to get the benefits.
Does it really work?
Yes, it is.
Is it really work?
Every time I'm chatting with the customers, you go, Toby, do some bag and boards. That's work, Ryan. That's work.
Anyway, if we did one, we'd get like $10 anyway, so it doesn't matter. ConspiratorBrock.com. Go visit Brock's blog and all his digital stuff on there. Comics at the Kind. Omar is in his whirlwind tour of Europe. Hopefully he's back in a week or two. Go visit his website, comicsandthekind.com. Infinite Long Box Podcast and The Wanderers in the Fourth Dimension
Dude,
podcast.
that new Doctor Who is freaking awesome.
I gotta watch it still.
That last episode is really, really cool.
Those are Charlie's other podcasts. On Twitter, I'm Ryan Higgins. Ryan Brock is Brock Sager. Omar is Comics at the Kind. Bryce Larsen is Larsen Bryce. Toby is Toby XI. And Charlie is Insanity in Chaos. Also, go listen to the Geek Box, the Comedy Button, Good Job Brain, All Talk. Listen to All Talk Watches Star Trek Enterprise and Manga Machinations. The All Talk Podcast's new manga podcast. First episode just went up. Forums.geekbox.net is where you can get that. They're talking about Billy Bat. It's a good book. So I've heard. I haven't read it.
Time for them to do some slam dunk.
Well, I want to see if this works.
I'm sure you could request it. All right. Bryce is going to give us the outro now.
Well, I don't know if you were able to hear it.
I couldn't hear anything. I don't know what that was.
I know what it is.
I heard like a little whisper or something like that.
I know what that whisper is.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
All right. We're done. Goodbye, everyone.